Alright, welcome to this tutorial on Wwise in Unity. Today I'm going to be going through how to set up footsteps in Wwise and implement them in Unity. Firstly, I've got this finished scene just demonstrating the finished product. So as you can see here, I've got footsteps being triggered in Unity. And as I walk through over all of the different surfaces, it changes the footstep sound to match the surface that I'm walking over. Now that you've seen how it should look, I'm going to take you through how to make this yourself. So what I've got here is the Unity projects that will be available for download, so you can follow along with this tutorial. All this is the same project, just without all of the Wwise integration stuff done already. So the first thing we're going to want to do is close this down, and in the Wwise launcher, you need to find your Unity project and start integrating Wwise. This process can take a while, so give it a few minutes. But once that's done, we can go ahead and open the Wwise project. Now that we're in the Wwise project, we can get to making the footstep sounds. In the Actor Mixer hierarchy, create a switch container. Now in this, we can import our audio files as random containers. This will help bring more realism to the sound effects as they're triggered in the game. So if we go to import audio files, we can drag our different footstep types into here. And as you can see, each of the folders contains multiple audio files, multiple different footsteps of the same type, and they're being created as random containers, as shown by this icon. So if we import this in here now, what we'll get is different random containers containing the different types of sound effects. So if we highlight one of these and press play, we can hear the footstep sound being triggered. However, if we go onto the footstep container, we can't play it. Not yet. What we need to do is go into game syncs. And in the switches section, we can create a new switch. And now for this, we need to copy our layout that we have here. So we have 5 different types of footsteps. So we need to create 5 different switches. There we go. So what we can do now is assign our footstep switch container to this group. Now, this has appeared on the right hand side. And we can drag each of the random containers in to their relevant slots here. What this means is that for example, when the concrete switch is set by the game, so this switch is being set here, the concrete random container will be triggered. So, as you can see here, concrete is selected at the moment in the transport control. So the concrete step will play. If we select gravel, gravel will play. And wood will play. We can also set a default, just so that the game has something to play if no switch has been set by it already. Next thing we need to do is create an event. This is so that the game can trigger the footstep. Now, with the event selected, you need to go back to the audio section and drag our footstep container into the event editor. This will create a new action for this event of play. So every time the event, with the event selected in transport control when we hit play, it triggers the footstep. So now Unity will have something to look at and trigger our footstep random container. And for the final part, we need a sound bank. And for the final part, we need a sound bank. This will contain all of the events that we want to include in our game. So if we press F7 or go into the layouts, we can go to the sound bank editor. So now we can see that our movement sound bank is appearing here. And make sure that it's checked so that we're including it in the build. So now we can drag our footstep event down to the inclusion zone here, so that our footstep event is included in the movement sound bank. And you can see also that the switches are included in this as well. Then, finally, we can generate them. So now, once we go back into our Unity project, we'll be able to see that our sound has been loaded in. Now that we're in our Unity project again, we can see that after the integration, we now have the Wwise picker available to us. From here, we can see all of the content that is in our Wwise project. So we can see our footstep event, we can see our footstep switches, and we can also see the sound bank that we created. The first thing we want to do is load the sound bank. So create a new game object, and click Add Component, scroll down to Wwise, and add a bank. Now you can select your bank from the drop-down list. I'm going to need to move this. There we go. And I can select my movement sound bank. What this is doing is it's loading our sound bank into the scene so we can access all of the audio and events inside of it, all of the content that the sound bank includes. Next, on our player, we have a camera. On our camera, we need to make sure that there is an AK game object and an AK audio listener. This allows audio to be heard when playing the game. On our player, with the player controller that I've included, there's the player move controller. What we need to do is edit this script. In the script, right down at the bottom, you will find this section. This is a function I've created to trigger the footsteps. What's happening here is whenever the player is moving, it's triggering a footstep every so often in this section right here. So what we need to do to trigger the footstep is to use AK sound engine dot post event. And then inside its brackets, we need to put the name of what our event is. So if we go back into our Unity scene, we can see that our footstep is exactly this, just footstep with no capitals. So there we can put that there. Now we need to say what object the footstep is being triggered on. This is a useful feature, as you may want to trigger a sound from the script, but have a different object in the game emit the sound. For this, we can just put this dot game object and then end off the line. We can save that, then go back into our Unity, wait for it to compile. Okay, so now that's compiled, we need to add an AK game object onto our player, since this is the object that the audio is being triggered on. All objects that have audio being triggered from them will need a game object. So for example, if instead of using this .game object, we were referencing the cam target, we would need to put the game object on the cam target. Now, when we play our game, we will see that as I move around, the footsteps are being triggered. However, as I move over the different surfaces, they're not being changed. So for this, we need to create a new script to set the switch on the player object. So how we do this is, let's go into our scripts and create a new C# script. We can call this surface trigger. We can open this up. For this script, we won't be needing the void start or void update. We'll be using void on collision. So we'll start with void on collision, enter. And if we press enter, it will fill that out for us. And now we can set up our comparison statement. So if collision, so if collision.gameObject equals our player ref, nah, that's bad. Okay, so if now script's opened up, first thing that we need to do is create our variables. So the first variable we need is player reference. So create public game object player ref. And we'll also need a reference to our switch so that we can select in the inspector which type of footstep we want to trigger with each different piece of flooring in the game. So create another public variable, and this needs to be ak.wise.switch, and we can call this footstep switch. Now for this script, we're not going to be needing void start or void update. We're going to be using void on collision enter. And we can go void on collision enter. And hit enter and let it fill the rest out for us. It will create this for us. What we need to do now is check whether the player has collided with this particular game object. We can do that by if checking if the game object that is currently colliding with our piece of flooring is equal to our player ref. And then if it is, we can set our footstep switch. So if we get our footstep switch, we can set this value on our player ref. So now, anytime that the player collides with our piece of flooring, it will set the footstep switch that we've selected and change the footstep type to match the flooring. So now that we've done that, we can go back into our Unity scene and wait for this to compile. There we go. Now, we need to attach this script to all of the pieces of flooring. So I've got all of them here. So let's drag each of them on. Okay, so now we have our scripts on all of the pieces of flooring. One important thing to note is that each of the pieces of flooring will need a rigid body and a box collider. This will allow our player to interact with them and trigger our on collision enter. We can now set our switches for each of the different surfaces. So wood. Okay, now that we've done that, we also need to set our player reference for each of these scripts. So grab the player object and drag it onto the player ref slot, and do this for each of them. Okay, now we have that done. Let's test our game. So we can see that instead of the concrete sound, now the wood sound is being triggered. And as I walk over to the metal, now the metal footstep is being triggered. And for gravel, dirt, and also concrete. So there we go. Now we're able to set up footsteps in Wwise, trigger them in Unity, and also set which footstep type we want to be playing based on which piece of flooring the player is in contact with. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and if there's anything else you are unsure of with Wwise and its integration with Unity, make sure to leave a comment asking about it, and I may make a video on it in future. Thanks for watching.